Hey there, friends. You know how our good friends over at the ATF create these loopholes that only they can take advantage of in their own rulings? In other words, they put all this information in there that's rock solid. And then they always end it with, unless the ATF agent deems otherwise or thinks otherwise. So they always give themselves an out. Like they give these ironclad rules and then they say, unless we think it's necessary to do something different based on our judgment, because we're the pros. It looks like our friends over in the Malinowski murder in Little Rock have done the same thing with regards to body-worn cameras. I found this U.S. Department of Justice memo that is discussing the use of body-worn cameras, and this is more about giving permission to use body-worn cameras than it is to mandate it. You've heard these two senators, I think it was Cotton and I'm not sure who the other, Boozman, where they talked to this Arkansas senators, where they talked about it was mandated that the the FBI agents and ATF agents, that all these guys were required to wear body-worn cameras. Well, if you look at this memo, this is more worded to say when they could use them, but when they might want to use them. It's giving permission to use them. It's not in any way, shape, or form mandating that body-worn cameras have to be used and actually turned on. Scroll down here to part ways through page 2 where it says use of body-worn cameras during federal task force operations. You'll notice this acronym of TFO. We're going to be using that quite often. That means task force officers. Unless subject to specific exceptions below, task force officers employed by a law enforcement agency that mandates the use of BWC's body-worn cameras on federal task forces may wear and activate their recording equipment for the purpose of recording their actions during task operations only during, and then it lists some other ones. Now I want to go back to this first sentence where it says that they may wear them. It does not say must wear. Those are words that mean completely different things whenever it comes to legal reasons why you do or don't do something. I'm not an attorney, but I know the English language. Where they say may wear, that's giving you permission if you wanted to wear them. If it said must wear, you would not have an option or a choice to choose otherwise. You would have to do that. This is simply using the word may, giving you the option to do it or not to do it. And they go on to talk about the operations that you can or you may use them in. Planned attempt to serve an arrest warrant or other planned arrest. That was what we were dealing with in the Malinowski case in Little Rock. The execution of a search warrant. That's exactly what we were dealing with. You'll notice that this one sentence, task force officers are authorized to activate their body-worn cameras upon approaching a subject or premises, which is what we were dealing with in Little Rock, and must deactivate their body-worn cameras when the scene is secured or determined by the federal supervisor on the scene as designated by the sponsoring federal agency. For the purposes of this policy, the term secured means that the scene is safe and under law enforcement control. Now, these guys went to Malinowski's house, I believe, knowing that they were going to murder this guy. Why else would you cover a camera up to hide your own actions? No one can respond fast enough with a Ring doorbell to be able to ascertain exactly what's going on and plan some kind of crazy little scheme to attack these guys and suddenly be harmful to them. This was covered up, the camera was covered up to hide what they were doing. I wonder after reading this memo if when they come out and explain, because they will, when they explain why they did not have body-worn cameras on, if it's because they deemed the property secured, which would mean that they knew they were going to murder this guy. Because if they didn't feel like they needed to turn on the body-worn cameras because the scene was already secure whenever they got there, either they didn't think they had a legitimate threat at this location, or they knew they were going to neutralize the threat immediately, which is what they did. Read down a little bit further where it says task force officers are prohibited from recording one, undercover personnel. May have been some undercover guys in here because there were some undercover operations that kind of intertwined with this whole operation with Malinowski. You'll remember that some of the ATF or FBI agents, I don't recall which place, but probably ATF, undercover agents had purchased firearms from Malinowski at one of the gun shows that he was at and had a table set up at. So there were definitely undercover agents involved in the sting operation. I just don't know if the raid and the murder that night, if they were involved in that. But look down a little bit further where it says, subject to the discretion of the federal agency sponsoring the task force, which means the lead guy can make a judgment call, which he likely did. Task force officers generally shall not use their body-worn cameras to record any activities related to investigations involving public corruption. Again, we don't know what the full list and the full detail of the investigation was. We're just looking at it from the 30,000 foot level that the ATF has said this guy was, quote, trafficking guns or selling guns in the process of selling guns without a license. Medical facilities, national security, or other sensitive investigations. There's your loophole to give them an out to make a judgment call, or other sensitive investigations. This, I can guarantee you, when they ask them why they weren't wearing their body-worn cameras or turned them on, they're going to say this was a sensitive investigation. The last sentence says the department's policy of permitting the limited use of BWCs on task forces does not apply to highly specialized or sensitive operations or groups as determined by the federal agency sponsoring the task force. That sentence alone tells you everything you need to know about who gets to call the shots. None of the rest of this 6-page memo means a single thing based on this last sentence. The department's policy of permitting the limited use, they say limited, even though they got $37 million in their budget, of body-worn cameras on task forces does not apply to highly specialized or sensitive operations or groups as determined by the federal agency sponsoring the task force. The ATF determined that they did not need to use body-worn cameras. They have an out in their own memo. That's going to be the way they get out of this. These senators were wrong, saying that it was mandated that they had to wear body-worn cameras. They misread or misunderstood what was in this memo. They wrote their own out in this memo, meaning that, yes, we may require them, but if we decide not to, we don't have to. This is the out they needed. Nothing will come of this as far as not having body-worn cameras and no video. I still believe that they have video. I still believe that Congress will not have access to any of that video. I still believe the video they got was something that they could high-five each other on and show this is how a successful operation is run. I do believe they have video, but I don't think they're going to tell anybody that, and I think they're going to use this memo to say this is why we don't have any video, because we gave ourselves permission to make a judgment call if we wanted to, and we made one.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
He's over!